Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to Life on the Wrist. Hope you are doing well today. Geneva Watch Days is in full swing. This is an event where brands can showcase some of their new pieces for the upcoming season. And I wanted to go over a couple of the watches that I think have caught my eye personally. I've been all over Instagram and all of the watch media outlets. So I'm going to go through 4 watches, but there's so many watches that have been released. I apologize if I've left one out. But if you go to any sort of watch news outlet, you'll be able to find some more of these pieces. It was sad. I was hoping actually to go to Geneva for Geneva Watch Days, but unfortunately that just didn't happen. So we'll have to discuss it over the podcast. So Geneva Watch Days takes place in Geneva, obviously, but it took place between Monday, August 29th to Thursday, September 1st of this year. And many brands like Bulgari, MB&F, Oreck, and many more released some of their new watches. One watch that was released was from Jacob & Co., and this was part of their Astronomia sort of collection of watches. They have a ton of different versions of this: the Astronomia Sky, Astronomia Art, Astronomia Tourbillon, Astronomia Casino, Tourbillon Casino Baguette. There's so many of these that they have released. Now they have released the Astronomia Solar Bitcoin, which the solar system shares space with a recent addition to Life on Earth, which is an extra large rotating Bitcoin symbol. If you look at the watch, it follows the general aesthetic of the Astronomia Solar pretty heavily. You have all of the different planets sort of circling around. You have and then you have sort of the time dial display part of that rotating section. You then have a rocket ship that has a Bitcoin emblem on it, and then you have a huge Bitcoin logo that obviously rotates as well. This is pretty niche when it comes to thinking about who would actually be interested in buying this type of watch. It's a 44mm titanium blacked out DLC watch with a black alligator strap. Obviously, some serious horological thought and mechanics went into producing this watch. I think it's a grail for many people, but you have to sort of want this sort of aesthetic on your wrist. Whether you want Bitcoin to be part of sort of this specific watch is really up to you. You have to figure that out. There are only 25 that are being produced, and so you've got your niche. There probably are 25 niche Bitcoin or crypto enthusiasts who would want to buy this specific piece, and so pretty interesting move from them. Not my thing, but I think there's definitely a market out there for it. The next watch I wanted to talk about is from Moser. This is a new version of their Streamliner Tourbillon that they released. They released this watch with a Vanta black dial, which is new for them, and the watch is in red gold. The Streamliner has become somewhat of an icon for Moser. They've really kind of it's become a very famous watch for them, staple of their collection, and a really great move forward for them when it comes to sort of steel integrated braceless sports watches. And so I was listening to a interview with the CEO, and he was saying, sports watches. When it comes to sports watches, you have to release something in red gold, and so they've combined a red gold case with a Vanta black dial. It really is phenomenal looking. Vanta black is their sort of black dial that is super dark, and in my opinion looks really beautiful. The hour markers are in yellow gold as well, so you have that contrast with the dial. I think it's a nice step for Moser. I think it's going to be extremely popular. 40mm watch integrated bracelet with a HMC 804 automatic manufacture movement that has a 3-day power reserve, flying tourbillon at 6 o'clock. This is a badass watch. I think it's a really beautiful example of it, and a nice use of their Vanta black dials in an iconic watch that they've produced. I should have mentioned at the beginning, but there will be links in the show notes to all of these watches if you want to take a look at some pictures of them. So go ahead and look at the show notes while I walk through these watches. The next watch is probably one that hit home with a lot of collectors. The Octofinissimo has become a absolutely iconic and kind of like a watch for our time period from Bulgari. It's a super unique designed watch that has shattered many records, and so Bulgari decided to partner with a Japanese architecture, Kazuyo Sejima, who is, as I mentioned, an architect, and collaborated with them to create this limited edition piece that they have produced. The Octofinissimo is known for having sort of a matte finish to it, but what Sejima did was he basically polished everything. The case, the hands, the dial, the movement, the bracelet, it's all high polished. It's all got a high polished finish to it, which is obviously in contrast with what they typically produce. One thing that's pretty obvious about this watch is I mentioned that the dial is polished, but what Sejima actually did was he took the crystal of the dial and he put these little metallic dots on it. And so you've got this really interesting sort of pattern that on the dial side of the watch, which gives the wrist shots of these pieces quite an interesting look to them. Other than that, it's pretty much, you know, you're gonna get an Octofinissimo in this specific piece. Really incredible piece. I think Sejima had mentioned that they wanted to try and pare it down to producing a watch that could be considered like invisible, which I think is quite an interesting way of looking at this piece. As I mentioned, this is a limited edition watch. There's only 360 of these that are being produced, priced at $14,000 US, which I think is actually a really great price for a limited edition iconic watch, especially in the most recent couple of years. So pretty cool collaboration from Bulgari, and definitely took over Instagram when it was released. Audemars released one of their QPs with a blue ceramic. When I say blue ceramic, I mean their dial, all of the sub-dials, the bracelet, and the case are all in blue. Not something that you see very, very often, but very, very blue. If you like the color blue, this is a perfect watch for you. And I believe that it's a price on request, so I don't think it's going to be in production serially. But definitely stood out when it came to the watches that were released. The last watch I want to talk about just was from Tudor. Tudor released a new Pelagos. Well, it's the same Pelagos that you're going to get in the other ones that they've released, but they released it in a 39mm case. It comes with everything that you would have expected from a Tudor Pelagos. There aren't too many design changes that have really happened with this watch. You still have your helium escape valve, titanium case, titanium bracelet, but it's just pared down to 39mm. 39mm is for many a very wearable size. It's sometimes spoken as the sweet spot size for many watch collectors, and so I think this was a smart move commercially for Tudor, and I think will garner a lot of support, and definitely you'll end up seeing these 39mm Pelagoses on people's wrists for sure. As I mentioned, there'll be links in the show notes to all these watches if you want to take a look at them. Geneva Watch Days is always a nice thing to celebrate in the watch world, because you get to see all the watches that are going to be released. Very exciting times for all of you who are watch enthusiasts. So let me know which watch you enjoyed the most from Geneva Watch Days. You can hit us up on Instagram or any of our social media sites. There'll be links in the show notes to all of that. Check out our website for more watch content. We have editorial section there. We also post on our YouTube channel, so Be sure to check those out. If you are new to Life on the Wrist, be sure to follow this podcast. If you like watches, we talk about many different topics in the watch world, and don't forget to share this with a friend who might be interested in watches. If you wouldn't mind rating this podcast, really does help me out. With that said, guys, thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and until next time.